Well, Saoirse Ronan, before we talk Little Women, congratulations on your 4th Golden Globe nomination. What was it like
Thank you.
a week ago?
It's always lovely. It's always been a lovely treat to know that that anybody thinks you're decent. So yeah, and I mean I think, you know, with any project you're involved in, but certainly with Little Women and doing it with Greta again, I think it was, you know, the performance was so much hers as it was mine, and we worked on it so closely together in the months sort of leading up to the shoot. So yeah, so it's great, and it's I think it's just a lovely thing that even after 150 years we still keep returning to this story, and it's still relevant, and people can recognize the sort of the special quality that it has. So
when Greta told you this idea, did she wait until she had the screenplay done, or did she tell you about it early on?
She actually had been working on Little Women before we made Lady Bird. So she had pitched the idea to Sony, I think about like 5 years ago, and she was going to write it then, but was not on board to direct. And then she went away, made Lady Bird with me, and went straight back to Little Women as soon as all the Lady Bird press was done. And I heard about it because we were still doing like award shows and things like that. And I just tapped her on the shoulder one day and said, you know, I know that you're doing Little Women, and I just want to let you know that I'm doing it too. And I'm going to be Jo. And that was kind of it. And she took some time to think about it, and I was like, oh, all right. And about a week or two later, she emailed me and said that I could be her Jo. So yeah, so it was it all kind of started at the beginning of last year, I suppose.
That was a very Jo thing of you to do, to just blurt out, you know, exactly what you wanted.
I know.
And that you were going to play the role.
I know. I'd never done that before in my life. I've always been very sort of Irish about how I've like pursued work by just kind of going, if you want me, I'm here, but don't worry if you don't. But secretly really wanting to do them. And I think it was the same for Greta. Like when she pitched the idea to Sony all those years ago, she told them that she should direct it, that it was for her to direct. And, you know, she was not the director of Lady Bird yet. So there was clearly a sort of spirit of Louise's that was in us when each of us decided that it was the project for us.
On the, from Lady Bird to Little Women, that was her first, you know, feature as a solo director, and then Little Women being her second. How had she changed as a director?
How has Greta changed as a director? I mean, she, you know, one of the things that she said to us when we started Little Women is that for like myself and Timothée, who worked with her on the other movie, is that, you know, she knew that we had a lot more bells and whistles now. We had a bit more money because we needed it for the scale of the film, the bigger cast, much bigger expectation, but she still wanted it to feel like the indies that we've all grown up making, and she still wanted it to have the same sort of atmosphere as Lady Bird, and it really did. And I think for her to have the confidence to do that with such a big studio film it really kind of says a lot to who she is as a filmmaker and a person anyway, but also, you know, how much she's sort of, it sounds patronizing to say grown, but like kind of how much she's evolving as a filmmaker just even in the last few years. And she said it herself that she's sort of gone through this like massive growth spurt from the first movie to the second movie. And they've both been very, very big projects for her to take on and have really been a total labour of love. So really not that much has changed when it comes to her and her spirit. But I think, you know, we had to be incredibly focused on what the thing was because it was an adaptation. It was somebody else's work originally. And so there was a lot of discussion between all of us and between Greta and I about what we wanted to do with this. And and to see her be so involved with us and the other heads of department and really just take command over the set was amazing to see. But she has in no way lost that spirit that she had on Lady Bird, where she was just so excited to be there every day. So
when you heard, we've seen other adaptations over the years, film and television, but we've never seen one like this where you go back and forth in the timeline. What did you think about that idea when you heard that that's how it's going to be approached?
I mean, I think it's terrific, because I think, you know, if you're going to do Little Women again, it has to be something fresh. Otherwise, there's no point in doing another adaptation of a book that everybody knows so well and has been done 8 times in cinema. So, you know, I think what Greta's talked about is that she returned to the book as an adult and found such an interest in who the girls were when they were out on their own, and then to sort of revisit who they were as children and kind of figure out why that informed the decisions that it did when they were younger. Was a really interesting way to play it. And I just think from a filmmaking point of view, to have the sort of singular moments that have existed in the past and then take you into the present, or vice versa. Just as an audience member, I think you're on a ride. You're not just being sort of spoon fed the story, you know, and people, you know, have to be engaged in it and really really pay attention to what's going on. And what a lot of people have said when because I mean, everyone who I've spoken to watches it and they say, I want to go see it again straight away. And I thought the same thing. And I think for the people who have seen it 2 or 3 times, they've said, oh, you know, there's certain sequences in it and I know what's coming up. And when I see a quick cut to the future or the past, it hits me so much more, you know. So I think it's one of those films that is like so exciting to watch the first time, and then you just want to go straight back in again so that you can soak it all up even more.
Tell us about Jo. I mean, how would you describe her if you were telling her a story to a friend, and how did you play her differently as the younger version as opposed to the one a few years later?
I think Jo is somebody who very much sort of goes to the beat of her own drum. I think her sisters are her whole life. She's grown up around mainly women really championing each other. So for her, that is sort of the norm. And one of the things that I found interesting that you see flashes of in the film is this real need that she has to please her father. I mean, in real life, Louisa and her father's relationship was kind of complex, and initially he wasn't very supportive of Louisa, and so I found it really interesting to try and incorporate that need for a parent's approval into her spirit a little bit and her work, and so yeah, and I think, you know, she's one of the few people who found something when she was very young that she's very good at, and regardless of the time period that she's living in, she fights through it all, and she's willing to fight through it all to get what she wants. And I think that's kind of idealistic as well when she's a kid, and then you see her when she's older, and obviously tragedy hits the family, and people start to get married and everyone leaves, and she goes through a period of sort of at least melancholy, maybe depression, where she doesn't really have anything anymore, and she does start to doubt whether this was the right choice after all. And I found that so amazing to be playing this very famous heroine and well-known protagonist in film and literature who in our adaptation of the film has a lot of self-doubt, and that appears kind of throughout the movie, especially when she's older, in the way it does when you go into your 20s and your maybe your 30s as well, I don't know, but definitely your 20s. And so getting to these scenes where, you know, she says to Friedrich, no one will ever forget Jo March, but she's got so much doubt and insecurity across her face, but she still says it. and then says later on, I'm desperately lonely, even though I believe in all these things and I believe that women should have all these things. It was such a great thing for me to play because it just made her this really complex, sort of well-rounded character, and I think she's been given, even her writing and her relationship with her writing, and then with romance and loneliness and marriage and all that sort of stuff, has been given attention in a way that it wasn't, I don't think, before.
I want to ask you about a couple of your cast members here. We just interviewed Tracy Letts last week, or maybe it was the week before, and he said he would do a Greta Gerwig movie, TV show, play, anything with her for the rest of his life if she would let him. And the two of you were both in Lady Bird. He was your father, and here it's a whole other dynamic. I love the way you play off of each other in this movie because it's so dialogue friendly, and he doesn't like the idea of you writing for him at all. Tell us just about working with him.
He's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's the smartest person, and he loves Greta, and I love him, and I remember doing Lady Bird with him, and I just instantly felt comfortable around him. I didn't feel like, I needed to put on a show or anything with Tracy. He just kind of takes you as you are, because he just comes as he is, and I don't know, I feel very close to him, and I always have done, and so then to get to work with him on top of that just makes it so lovely, and he's been so supportive and lovely towards me as well. So I think whenever we've done anything together, I always felt like he had my back, and he comes from the theatre, and he comes from words and dialogue and text, and I think he has such an appreciation for Greta's talent for that,
Yeah, our New York staff can't wait for this new play to open on Broadway in a few months.
I know, it sounds great. Well, he just did one, didn't he? That closed like a month ago, or
he did one that's been off in another city, maybe Chicago or somewhere, doing tryouts, and they're going to bring it to Broadway here for the spring.
Oh, great! Yeah, he's always doing something, Tracy.
He's always doing something. And then you mentioned Timothée earlier. Now you've worked together a couple of times. Why do you and he work off of each other so well?
I think sort of for the same reasons that we did instantly feel very comfortable around one another. I also think we're very different actors. We bring a very different energy to a scene, and even the way we work, our energy is quite different. He's very sort of like frenetic, and there's like a wildness there, which I find really exciting to work with. And he's brilliant. He's a brilliant actor, and he has so much kind of soul to him. And and I just love kind of not knowing what he's going to do next. And it's sort of like a game of tennis where like I'll throw something at him and he can take it, and he throws something back at me, and I'm like, all right, bring it on. And it's it feels like a real team when we're together, and I think like over the last few years, even just with him doing all of his stuff with Call Me By Your Name with awards, and the same with me for Lady Bird, I think going through that kind of experience together, which is such a kind of surreal thing anyway. It does bring you together, so definitely after that experience and then going into Little Women, it made us even closer, really.
I want to, as we wrap up, ask you just a couple of awards questions. We're an awards website. I mentioned your Globe, fourth Globe nomination. Every time you've gotten in at the Globes, you've also gotten in at the Oscars. So we will see here in just 2 or 3 weeks. If that's the case this year, I hope it is. When did you start voting on the Oscars? When did you get invited to join?
When did I get invited to join? I got invited to join. I think after, I feel like it was after Hannah, because Hannah wasn't something that got like awards attention, but it was a real hit and people really liked it. I don't know if it had anything to do with that, but I think I I got invited around that time, and I love it, and I love the responsibility of it. I love like that you know, it's kind of like your duty is like as a member to sit down every year, and you have the pleasure of watching all these amazing films that come out. And I think it's so helpful now this year that there's streaming. So like while I've been doing press for the film, I've been able to log on and watch movies as I've been traveling from place to place. And yeah, it's such an incredible company to be a part of. Laura Dern obviously is a massive ambassador for the Academy as well, and yeah, they're good guys.
In all the years you've been voting, other than your own projects, do you remember a performance or a movie that you just loved so much and couldn't wait to mark it on your ballot?
I loved The Shape of Water a couple of years ago. I just thought, I don't know, I'd never seen anything like it. I love Sally Hawkins. I love Guillermo del Toro. Nobody makes films like him. They're so beautiful and dark, and she's such a sort of ray of sunshine. And yeah, I was like, what is this? Like, I've never seen a film like this. And that year in particular, being a part of the circuit as well, it was such an exciting year and so inspiring for all of us that were there, and I think other filmmakers as well, because the variation of the work was so evident. Like Get Out and Three Billboards and I, Tonya, and they were all so completely different, and it was such an exciting thing to be a part of. And even though obviously, you know, of course everybody would like an Oscar, but no matter who would have won, you're sort of like, oh, we're all so different that it's kind of great with whoever wins, you know. So yeah, but I remember watching that a few years ago, and I just absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up, Little Women's opening in theaters now. It's not just for women and girls. It's one of my favorite, probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite movies of the whole year. Why would men and boys want to go see it just as much as women and girls?
Because this is a story that everybody goes through, and especially people in the arts, especially like people who are going to be voting over the next few weeks. The whole journey that we go through as artists and as people who have an idea of what they want to create or who they want to be in this sort of industry. And then there's the industry, and you've got to try and balance like what you want to bring to it and also still, you know, be successful. And that's something that we're following with Jo March in this film, but it's something that, I mean, any person in the film industry, any person in the music industry, anyone in the arts or any industry at all can sort of relate to. And also, we have like the finest male actors in this film. You know, there's brilliant actresses, and there are brilliant actors like Tracy Letts, Timothée Chalamet, Chris Cooper, James Norton, Louis Garrel. And the guys are being allowed to do something that we just don't see in many films. They're allowed to be vulnerable, and I think as actors, it's so great for them that they don't just have to be this one sort of 2-dimensional, strong guy. It's not interesting to watch that. It's interesting to watch men and women have these private moments on their own where they can really feel everything they want to feel. And we have that with all of these characters. It's not just the girls. So everyone really brings something to it. And it's a very, very rich story and a very kind of full film because of that. And it's also just a brilliantly made film. And from a technical point of view, Greta Gerwig has done something very fresh, very interesting, very romantic, just really beautiful with this film. So,
well, I loved it. I hope a whole lot of people go to see it, and I'm guessing we're going to see each other on some red carpets over the next few months. I'm hoping.
Hopefully, yeah.
Well, we know some for sure, and we're hoping the others come through as well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.